Information waiting. There we go. Hi, everyone. I am back with Alistair Unicom of the Scottish WoW team. Alistair, you won your second pool. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Very, very happy with the team performance, and also congratulations to you. As the winner and world champions,
You?
official Warlord World Team Champions
Yeah,
of World Open War. So yeah,
yeah.
we've both done very well.
I think we did. I think we really did. Um, and it was very, very tight. So this is going to be the first of two interviews. There'll be one interview where I interview you because the Scottish, of course, won the Group B. The second group on the second day, which puts you in the top bracket for next year as well. So and
Yes.
then we'll switch roles for the next video where Alistair gets to interview me. Because it would be weird me interviewing myself. So right. So that's the idea with this short series of videos. So Alistair, going into this, what were your thoughts on picking the team for WoW?
We are very lucky in Scotland that we run a championship that runs throughout the course of the year, and all our international team selection is based upon that. A quick overview is we've usually got between 7 or 8 events in Scotland that you can get championship points at, and players can only use their best 3 results. So it's not a case of whoever can go to the most gets the most points and wins. So it's the best 3 results that they get to count. And there are bonus points for using multiple different nations. So if you
Mm.
can use 3 different nations over 3 events, accumulate points, then that'll all go towards a championship. When it
Is that
comes to
is that done because you believe it gives you extra experience with having run different nations?
its experience with different nations, absolutely, it means that the potential is that there could be 2 or 3 players that all use British. We
Mm,
know the British are the best,
mm,
so they could all qualify for the team, but then only one of those players can actually use British at a team event, which means
yeah,
the other players have to pick something else that they
yeah,
might be less experienced at. So
yeah.
it means that the championship has got a built-in encouragement for players to use different nations.
Mm,
So once the championship has sorted itself out, there's always a captain who's already in place. And whenever a captain puts a team together, they have one single captain's choice. They can pick any player from Scotland.
mm,
The rest of the places are filled up by starting at the top of the championship ladder and then offering places as you go down.
yeah,
So for WoW, first and second got offered a place, and then captain's choice. The benefit here was that the previous year I was the Scottish champion, so I finished first.
yeah.
So I qualified for my own place, which meant I had a
Nice.
captain's choice,
Yeah.
and then it was just a matter of going down the list. So I ended
So
up.
so sitting with that captain's choice, because that makes it an interesting one, right? I think many teams would just go with the top players, the players who've done best. If they could get them again, because availability and stuff, right? Availability to travel and money to travel.
Yes.
But you're sitting with an active choice where you have to pick someone you think will benefit the team, or how did you interpret that one?
Well, when with the captain's choice, the other thing is that the captains may have to use the choice on themselves if they don't qualify for the team through the championship. If we were putting together a team for the WTC,
Yeah.
which is teams of 4, if the captain wasn't in the top 3, he would have to choose himself,
Yep.
which is a real possibility. So um, it's a double-edged sword, but in the end, I think most captains will always just pick from the championship. So
Mm.
for myself, I was first. Graham Thompson was second, and I'm quite sure as I went down the list, there was a couple of players that were unavailable. Points were close, and then Phil Mason was the player that had earned the spot in the team. So I never actually used the captain's choice to pluck a player out of
Mm.
the sky, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think
which is
truly, it's actually. I think it's truly just a fail-safe in case the captain has a bad
yeah,
year.
yeah, maybe it is, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea. For me, I think sometimes that I would I would sometimes maybe pick a less experienced player just because I felt like they would benefit the team in some way. But I can totally see that in some respect you might end up picking yourself
Yeah.
because you have to go. Right. What about the nations that you guys ended up bringing? Because I know there was a little bit of back and forth. You had an army that was rejected, and you had to pick another nation. And so, what were your thought process on picking nations for a team like this?
For the team, it's playing to the strengths of the players,
Mm,
and this will come up later on in the interview we've got. But knowing that Graham Thompson's strength is with British,
yeah.
I naturally wanted him to default to using British.
Mm,
Phil Mason has been working on his Soviets for 18 to 24 months now,
yeah.
over different events, including flyaways to Denmark and to England. So he was naturally going to be given those to use. Then myself, I have got a good repertoire with different nations.
Mm,
So I was able to let my players choose their nations first. And then I was going to plug the gap. So originally I was going to choose Romania, and the theory craft behind the team was that I wanted all the nations we played to have free units,
yeah.
3 points,
Okay.
and uh, that was my desire.
Yeah.
Uh, if I speak about myself, I'm not good at horde armies, so a big
Mm,
French army wouldn't have worked. So then you are falling into the minor Axis powers, but I have got a good track record with Romania. They were my original first choice, but I came across an issue with miniatures in
mm,
conjunction with the tournament organizer, so I had to default to something else. And at that point, I was split between Germany and the United States, and it was my belief that the United States would be a better suit
mm,
for me and for the event,
yeah.
just because it was single platoon, and I still got this thing with Germany would have been just as good a choice, but I wanted the maneuverability that I think the Americans have over the Germans.
Yeah, maybe a lot of the maneuverability sits in the German vehicles instead of the actual infantry, right? Where American
Yes,
they really have the good skirmish infantry.
correct.
Um, but you are also quite experienced with Americans, aren't you?
Yes, I've
Yeah,
used them quite a number of times.
yeah,
So putting together an American list was almost no effort at all.
mm, yeah. So that was the nation choices. Did you guys consult the pack before you chose nations, or was that part of your process at all at that point?
I don't think the player pack was a huge impact upon us, other than setting out the single platoon 1,100 points.
Mm,
Because once you're in a single platoon format, you're not going to encounter a lot of lists that have tricks.
mm,
Nobody's going to be double downing on a particular strategy. The ability to come across a true horde army is limited.
mm.
So it was letting the players build an army to their strengths and play style. So no, I would actually say no. That beyond the rules restriction, the player pack didn't impact list choice.
No. Um, because one of the things that you could have been focused on was the missions. For me, there was a lot of objective missions in the pack here that could have influenced your list building process. Was my idea here.
No, and we knew the missions were there, but I think there's always that thought and bolt action that if you can just destroy your opponent, the
Yeah,
mission is just a sort of an afterthought.
that's an extra.
But it is. But I've often found though that if you gear towards a particular style of mission, it means that if there's the opposite style of mission,
Mm,
there must be a negative or a sort
yeah,
of a drawback there. So,
yeah.
if it's lots of objective missions, so you'd want to take more multiple small units
Mm,
for claiming and contesting. That's great. But then when you come to kill points, you've got more kill points available. And because those multiple small units are intrinsically weaker to weapons fire, just because there's fewer models, then you're going to bleed kill points a lot more. So balance was the key. I'm quite sure all three of our armies each had 16 order dice, if I
I
remember
think so.
rightly.
Yeah.
Seems right.
Yeah. Then we all had a period where we were sort of waiting for all the lists to be approved and then released. And once that happened, what happened for you? The process you did from there.
So that was a little bit of back of house admin. So I focused on we had the group draw, so we
Yeah.
knew who we were up against. So we had
Yeah.
Spain, the Jutland Company, and the Luftwaffe from Germany. So the first focus was to read their lists and try to understand what sort of strategies were going to be employed. I think also trying to guess who the players were, because at single platoon, players matter more.
Oh yeah.
And again, looking at the Jutland Company and the Luftwaffe, we had very little information on those teams, so it was just a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
Whereas for Spain, though, we've got a good idea of who is going to be appearing for Spain. And then it was a matter of trying to get the players to look at those lists and say, in a straight fight, who do you want? Who's your preference here?
Yeah.
There must be a natural draw. Another aspect of it, because I had Americans, there were quite a few German armies that had Brandenburgers in our first group, and America can negate the Brandenburger impact. So tactically, I was going to be employed against those, so that it would save the other players from having to,
struggle through that.
Change their strategy, because we know that Graham Thompson loves to outflank. He's a big fan of outflanking. Phil, not so much. But again, I like the players to have the option to run their strategies how they see them. And so that was that part. So getting the player feedback as to who their preferences would be. Forgetting about mission and forgetting about tables, because we don't have that.
Did you also have your players give you feedback as to any lists that they would absolutely not want to face?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. I think I was more inclined to say that there were some lists where I knew that it's like I cannot take this particular list on.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was good, and that was a huge part of my preparation as captain before going into the event. Was I understood the strengths and weaknesses of both my players and myself. I knew the preferences that they wanted to play, so it meant that on the day conversation, I didn't need much input from them. All I needed to do, because they told me beforehand, all I needed to do was gauge their mentality, if their tails were up or if their heads were down, and just get a feel for the room, and then sort of maybe try and guide it based upon the table. So no, there was a lot of prep. No folder though, Bo. Didn't do a folder.
Yeah, but I noticed other people did. People are copying.
Yes, I didn't do a folder.
No, but I mean the process is very similar for what you did. You only did this for your starting group. Did you also go like through your most likely competitors, or was that later on?
Truly not. No. I mean, obviously we all read through the lists.
Yeah.
As a first read.
Yeah.
And your videos on your channel were also a good assistance. Just having your voice in the background, just talking through the lists. But again, I used those videos as like to almost second guess or cross check my own conclusions.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they were accurate from what I was thinking. But no, the focus was on day one.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did that.
Yeah. And also, it seems like you were focusing already at that point on what matchups you wanted. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your next interview question is, but I had a very clear strategy for the boys. And it was to maximize our wins or maximise our results against the Jutland Company and the Luftwaffe, who were our rounds 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The boys were instructed that secondary objectives were paramount. Had to get as many as you could. Obviously, victories were essential, but getting positive results overall. And if you had the opportunity to scoop up kill dice, do so.
Do so, yeah.
The strategy being that when we met Spain in the last round, I wanted us to have a points lead on them, if possible, or at the very least, a tiebreaker lead, so that in that last round, all we needed to do was get a draw. One win, one draw, one loss as a team of 3 players. And that would give us a draw with Spain, and then it would be, if we were on equal points, it might be down to tiebreakers or the small points, because Spain are a quality side. We know they're 3 times WTC winners. They are extremely good at bolt action. They have a quirky list set up and how they deliver it. So it's all that, just those little bit different from what we're used to playing in the UK. But I believe we could do it. I truly believe that, and I still believe. Well, I'll let you get to your next question before we go on a bit more.
Because then let's talk through each of your rounds. You started out with was that the Jutland Company?
Yes.
Yeah. And your thoughts there going into that was to maximize your wins. How are you going to do that?
It was. Now it's an odd one, because I hate to sound arrogant when you're talking about sending your players in to win, but it was ensuring that wins were as complete as possible.
Yeah.
So if you're going to win, make sure that you kill as much as you can. Make sure that you get the secondary objectives, and don't hold back. If there's if there are opportunities to push, it was just to not be aggressive, but it's okay to win by 2 points on turn 6, which is great.
Yeah.
But if you can win by 8 points on turn 5, that's what you should do.
Even better, yeah.
Make it a complete victory, not just try and steal it at the very end. That was what I meant by maximize the wins that we can. And I think we were right to a certain extent that the Jutland Company and the Luftwaffe, their players weren't going to be as experienced, and we looked at their lists as well.
Yeah,
and we knew that there was not huge deficiencies in the lists, but there was maybe not the most. Some of them didn't go down the most optimum path.
Yeah,
that they could have been. We're not talking meta here; it's single platoon.
Yeah.
But I always felt that some of the options they had, there were better options they could have spent their points on.
And that was how I read it as well, which is so it makes total sense as a captain going into that, trying to push your players to say, okay, right, we need as many points as we possibly can from these 2 teams, and I think both of the teams were just happy to be there, basically. So
and they were fantastic. I enjoyed meeting Jan, the captain of the Jutland Company, who's a fantastic man, and he will definitely grow as a player. We had a really good debrief at the end. And Matty, the captain of the German Luftwaffe team, he's just an absolute weapon of a player.
Yeah.
It's great to make new friends.
Yeah. Right. So was going into fighting the Luftwaffe again, unknown players at that time.
Yes.
Were your instructions the same for your players at that point?
Instructions were absolutely the same. So a quick touch on the Jutland Company. We got all the matchups that we wanted.
Yeah.
All three matchups were the ones we wanted. Maybe not on the most optimal tables, but we got the matchups we wanted, and we got the 3 wins. Then against the Luftwaffe, again, we got all 3 matchups that we wanted. We also got them on the tables we wanted.
Ooh,
which was even better. Yes, it was. So I had to face off against their German player. Because Ken had Brandenburgers and 2 multi-launchers. We knew instantly when we looked at our table set that there was it looked like a Western France village around a courtyard that just had, I think I counted like 15 buildings or something on it.
Yeah.
And I just said to the boys, it's like, I'll be playing here against that German player. They will not put him anywhere else.
No,
And that's exactly where they put him.
Yeah.
So they believed their strategy was working, but it played into what we wanted also. So
Can you just go into a little bit into that? Because going into a city table against double multi-launchers, that seems insanity. Why?
Well, I had one multi-launcher.
Yeah.
My opponent had two. And if I remember correctly, neither of my team had any multi-launchers, so I was the only one. So it made sense for me to also be on a table that had multiple buildings to target. He had Brandenburgers, which would have impacted the guys again with their outflanks. And that was... Were we playing key positions? We were playing key positions in round two.
Round two, yeah.
And so having outflank on key positions is quite important to some of the strategies, especially for Graham, how he plays out with his brain carriers. And for me also, I believed I could get to his multi-launchers quickly. There was lots of roads, I had lots of wheeled vehicles, and skirmish infantry. So it was one of those captain's games, so to speak, where you have to sort of lead from the front and take on the perceived, this is a problem.
The hardest enemy,
Yeah, this is a problem army on the optimal table for them. But again, with my own multi-launcher, he had to deal with that as well. So
right, and this also meant that going into the final round, you were in a position that you wanted to be in. Is that right?
More or less, we were tied on points with Spain. We both had 18 points going into the third round, so we had both dropped. I think we both had a draw. I knew though that I can't remember what our secondary objective tiebreakers were, but we must have been quite close. So we were in the right position where I wanted us to be going into the last round. But Spain are tough opposition, so
It really are. Yeah.
But the matchup process didn't deliver for us. We got one matchup that we wanted, and that was purely based upon... That was actually based upon players, not lists. So we wanted to match Graham up against Achilles, because it was our belief that Graham could get a result of some description against them. Be it a draw. As I said previously, we were looking for 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. And then that left us, myself and Phil. Phil had Carlos, who's the captain. And I had their British player, Hanno. And we should have been round the other way. Hanno had, and that was timely objectives. It is truly my belief that his army was built to win for timely objectives. Watching his strategy play out and knowing that there was nothing that I could do to stop it. By halfway through turn 3, I knew I had lost on the points. And
because he had large units of regulars that could move up and be on objectives, and he had Gurkhas in support, and he had flamethrowers and everything ready to go and push up the infantry.
It was fantastic, and because timely objectives has prep bombardment, each of those 3 big full strength infantry squads took pins, but he ran with them and he got the reroll on the leadership to make them move. So at the end of turn 1, there was 10 guys on each of the objectives with support on the way, and it was a great strategy, and I was thoroughly impressed by his gameplay and his planning. But even knowing that I'm losing, I revert to the strategy I'd laid out to the boys. If you're not going to win, you make sure everything within your power, you get the secondary, and you kill dice. And I know that Hanno, when he was still playing to win the event or to win the game, because he kept his big units bogged down on the objectives, whereas I
You started running around.
Yep, I pulled the infantry back and then just made a spearhead for
Yeah.
the secondary objective,
Yeah.
which I got. So, but sadly, Phil couldn't get a result, and he, on debrief with him, he lost because I believe the term is he got diced.
Yeah.
He there were medium howitzer hits going indirect, and he said there were 4 6s rolled in a row, so he lost big units really quickly.
Yeah.
But Graham achieved the victory against Achilles, which he was very proud of, and rightly so. He should be.
Yeah.
So that was that round.
And that meant that going into the second day, you were in the second bracket. What were your preparations on the evening? Because I know that you weren't that prepared against the next day, right? You already told us. And then you went out partying.
Yes, we partied hard
Yeah.
because we wanted to celebrate our good first day.
Yeah.
We felt we had played really well and we had got the maximum that was on the table for us. Beating Spain would have been a huge stretch goal.
Yeah.
But making sure that we secured a solid second on 21 points, we were really happy. And we were happy to be amongst our friends, our international friends from Denmark and England and America and South Africa, who we all, enjoy each other's company a lot. But we also knew who we were going to play the next day. So I was subtly gathering information, drunkenly, about our opponents, because we had the USA Swans, who were in your group.
Yeah.
So you may or may not have noticed that I spoke to your players quite a bit about how that was. We also had Spain 2. So, even though it's Spain 2, that's Spain have got a huge depth in player base.
Yeah.
So I have to admit, Spain 2 made me really nervous, just because their lists looked pretty solid and they were Spanish players. I wasn't able to find out too much about them. And then we also had Poland, who were one of the number 1 seeds that had got dumped out of their group. And we have got, in Scotland, a relationship with Poland in that we have played them the very first WTC in Poznan, and they beat us in the last round. We played them again at the WTC in Cork in the last round again, and that was for a podium place. They finished third, so there was a podium place match, and they beat us. We have declared them as our nemesis, and that to lose so often against them,
there must be something there.
It's become a bit of a frustration. But the benefit of that is that we know the Polish players. We've encountered them often enough at high level, and we know the strategies that they employ and the gameplay they employ, and even how they build their lists. Their lists were all very good. So Poland, we didn't have to research at all. We knew what to do.
You knew what you were going into,
Yep.
And then the second day came round. You guys were hungover and still on a high from the first day. And,
no, Bo, I was still drunk on Sunday morning.
That doesn't help, but well, maybe it does. I don't know. How do you feel? Did all that late night, and did that affect you at all? Or
no,
nope.
It was because we had such a positive enjoyment, so much enjoyment on the Saturday night that when we woke up, or at least when I woke up on the Sunday morning, I was ready for, let's do this. It was, confidence. There was no doubt. It's like, we can make this happen. We're gonna go out and slay some dragons today.
Brilliant. And did you focus as much on the second day on matchups and instructing your team, or did you just say, like, we're on a roll, just go for it, boys? What happened then?
No, there was just as much focus. There was more conversation and interaction between rounds.
Yeah.
Because we never had that pre-briefing, so catching up with the guys before round 1 and going over the list. So we had Spain 2 in round 1. And I can't recall the mission for the life of me. There were 5 objectives, I'm sure, 1 in each quarter and 1 in the middle.
Yeah, I can't remember round 1 at all.
Yeah, but we had a good look at the tables we were on, and we had a good look at the list, and the boys highlighted what they wanted to have and where they wanted to be. And again, it was one of those strategies where there was a table with a lot of buildings in the centre, and so that naturally fell to me. So no, it was just as focused. There wasn't any, because we had earned our spot in the second group, and that was what we believe was the most that was ever available to us. Because to beat Spain was
it was a long shot.
Yeah, but I mean, my plan wasn't even to beat Spain. It was just to get a draw against them, and then hope that we'd done enough in the previous rounds.
Yeah.
So no, our focus was just as clear on day 2 as it was on day 1.
And you obviously did well, because I mean, the second day you had Spain 2 in the first round.
Yes.
And you won that one.
Yes, we got 1 win and 2 draws. And this is a great little story for the listeners about team play. It involves myself, but if it involved any of our other players, it would have been just as important a story. I was aware that we had 1 win and 1 draw secured, so that if I had lost the game, it would have been a draw. All the objectives were irrelevant. They were all claimed except for the central objective that hinged the game. And it was the last minutes of the game, and my opponent, I'm truly sorry, I can't remember his name, was such a gentleman. I really enjoyed playing him. He had like an 8-man infantry squad claiming the objective in the middle. So he won. I had the last 2 dice. I moved the Jeep up, and I had a flamethrower team in it. So my option was bring out the flamethrower team, contest the objective, and the game is a draw, and Scotland win the round.
Yeah.
Or bring out the flamethrower team, shoot the flamethrower, potentially kill the infantry unit, which we know is it's a good chance.
It can happen. Yeah.
They were just regulars, and potentially win the game. Or the third option is bring the flamethrower team out, roll to hit, miss, roll for fuel, run out, get removed, and then lose the game. And so it was the moment of, it's a team event. You take the safe result to ensure the team win. It's not an ego-driven individuals.
That is pro play, gentlemen. All you viewers, listen to that one. Sacrificing a potential win to get a safe draw for team events. That is what you do. That
ensured we got a win against Spain too. Look, that's where, did we maximise it as a win? No. But at that point, you have to realise that winning is better than getting a draw for the round. So a win and 2 draws, we won the round against Spain too, and that was a really good result. Happy with that. Very happy with that.
Yeah. And then you went into the second round where you were facing off. Was that Poland in the second round?
No, round 2 was the USA Swans team. So
perfect. Yeah.
So through research, these guys are really good at bolt action, and they're part of the team that organised the Las Vegas Open, or have done in the past. So they've got an enormous experience of large events, playing in large events. So they were in no way pushovers. And what you have to remember as well is that Spain too were seeded sort of 3rd and 4th in their group, and they got out of the group into the second group. And it was the same for the USA Swans. So these guys have been giant killing on day 1 and arrived in group 2. So we were well aware that they were extremely good. And the match, we discussed the matchup process with the team, and there was one table that was a problem. It was a big problem. Had train tracks cutting through the length of the table. I played
on that one,
and they were impassable to wheeled vehicles. And there was no outflank on this mission, so I said to the boys that I would take that table and play for a draw. The issue I had was that I got an army that I didn't want. I was up against their player Brian with his Hungarian list.
Oh.
And I didn't want that.
Yeah, no. That was a bad matchup.
Yep.
Did you lose that one then?
No, I won.
Okay.
I got a win from that, which was really good.
Mm.
It was a tough strategy, but I was playing for the draw.
Yeah.
All the way. But I
And then
think Brian made a few errors, so that opened the
yeah.
door to victory.
And then in the final round, you were faced off against the nemesis of Poland.
Yes.
And
Far out.
was that a flat out struggle, or did you feel like you could strategize yourself to a win there?
How did I play this? The boys were fired up.
Yeah.
Like they were, their heads and tails had been up all weekend.
Yeah.
And I said to them, I was like, we are not going to capitulate here.
Okay.
I gave them quite a briefing. I'm not going to say what the briefing was because it's not polite on any YouTube channel, but it
Yeah.
made sure that they were in the zone for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Matchups were always going to be tough. Just with there was a lot of balance within Poland in
Yeah.
their lists,
Yeah.
but there was one list that that worried everybody, and it was their German list.
Mm.
Just for the volume of autocannons and heavy
Yeah.
autocannons,
Yeah.
and it almost came down to that point where we didn't believe that any of us could beat this list. But it was, how did I phrase it in my own head? It's like, if you were going to lose against this list, you might as well just go and lose big.
Yeah.
So whoever's got the least chance of beating it should play it to give the other boys the option.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, that was me. That was me. Just because
Oh
I only
man.
had one armored vehicle, everything else was soft skins.
Yeah.
I've got regular troops; they're just going to get chewed up by autocannons.
Mm.
But what I was able to do, I had to play on the train track table.
Yeah.
Again. So I
Again?
was
Oh,
again,
that
yep.
sucks.
But again, I was fine with that because
Mm.
again, if you're going to lose,
Yeah.
I'll just lose big against it. So I was able to draw that army and that player to that table
Mm.
to almost throw myself on my sword for it.
Yeah.
And we were playing sectors,
Mm.
so it meant that none of my wheeled vehicles could get over the
You,
halfway line.
you could only take the neutral zones with those
Yep,
then.
precisely. So and that was the strategy, and the other boys
Mm.
got good matchups, and then we went to work on it. So yeah, Poland were a tough nut to crack. I did
Mm.
lose my game. There was some lucky and unlucky dice on both
Yeah.
sides,
Of course. Yeah.
but both Graham and Phil won their game, so we beat Poland. We put our nemesis to bed.
Finally.
Yep.
Finally.
Until next time.
Until next time, of course,
Yep.
because there's always a next time. So in the end, that brought you the win of Group B. What does it
Yes.
mean to you to have won that right now?
It was the watch. We've always known that we've had the potential to be an extremely good team,
Mm.
always.
Yeah.
And it was just being able to show that to the international community. Like, I know it wasn't the championship group.
Yeah.
But I would hope that there are no other sort of players or captains out there that are just saying, it's Group 2, it's nobody.
No.
But they weren't nobodies.
They were
Um,
definitely. Poland is a really good team. They had really
yes, they
good
are.
lists. The Swans was a really good team. You were really. I mean, that was a difficult group to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I hope that it not reminds people, but it sort of firms in people's minds that Scotland aren't just
Mm.
a team that are there to make up the numbers and the places. We've got quality players that can deliver
Yeah.
results. So
Yeah.
it was a very proud moment. I knew all my emotions happened at the end of our games with Poland, knowing that we beat them. I think I was quietly sort of smiling, almost a tear,
Yeah.
knowing that we had done enough.
Yeah.
To ensure we got the win as a group. That was enough. So when we got called up for the trophies and the prizes, I didn't have any emotions there. It was just a gratefulness to
Yeah.
the organisers. But beforehand, I know that my team knew that how proud I was of them, and to end my sort of period as captain of Scotland as well. and to bring some trophies home was
Yeah,
very happy, very proud.
that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Alistair, thank you so much for coming onto the channel, and I will see you in the next video where we switch roles. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and congratulations to the Scottish winners. Cheers.